Hey guys, hello, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Steven. I'll apologize for the lighting. It's a table lamp on a desk and the noise of the air conditioner. I apologize. It'll go on and off as I talk. So it's been a week since I've talked to you guys, longer actually. And so I figured I'd film a video, say hi, and you guys have asked some amazing questions. I know the last video I did was a question and answer video, but I figured since I had these questions, I might as well do another question and answer video. Excuse me. Pardon. All right, so let's get into it because I was about to start talking about my cats. I will do an update video about the cats when I get back from this trip. Their health, which is dramatically changed, how they're getting along, which is also dramatically changed. Buddy has changed a lot. Eleanor has transformed. So has Claire. And I've got a great story to tell you about the woman I met who actually is the one who had Claire and Eleanor neutered. If it hadn't been for her, I never would have met them, and my life wouldn't be as nice as it is today. So I'll tell you about that when I get back from this trip. It's a great story. I'll do a little question and answer video. So I'll start with it's really a hard question. Rachel asked, how do I handle nervous flyers? And there's no one way to answer that question because everyone... So I'll approach it as I can. When I'm on board, I try to approach our guests with our passengers with patience, love, and tolerance, rather than barking at them to follow orders. For example, if I'm asking them to raise their tray tables or to stow their bags, I'm going to say something like, "Hi, would you please raise your tray table for takeoff?" Or I'm going to say something like, "Hi, as cute as your bag is, could you please tuck that under the seat in front of you, please? Thank you so much." That tone and that energy just always seems to work. I never have someone roll their eyes or not comply because I just was very nice to them. And I think that tone makes me approachable when someone is feeling sick or uncomfortable or afraid. And I'm trying to be as vigilant as I can with all of our guests and situationally aware and attentive is the magic word. I'm trying to be attentive to all of our guests. So I hopefully will be able to recognize when someone doesn't look like they're at 100%. You know, if they're feeling a little sick or look anxious, I'll stop. This is how I would approach them. I'll kind of approach them slowly. I'm not running up. I'm not causing a scene. Like, "Hey, hi, how you doing over there? What's going on? How you feeling?" And at that point, they're going to either say, "Oh, I'm anxious. This is my first time flying. I'm a little nervous," or I'm getting a little... I'm a little queasy because this is my first flight, or I'm just nervous about flying. And so I'm going to say, "Oh, totally normal. Everyone's felt that at some point. What is it that you're most afraid of? Is there a particular aspect of flying that you're anxious about?" And whatever they say, if it's taking off, turbulence, or landing, I'm going to say totally normal. And I'll ask them something like turbulence. If they're afraid of turbulence, I'll say turbulence is totally normal. Would you like me to explain what turbulence is or how the plane handles it? And approach it in a totally calm, matter-of-fact way and express again, once this is a totally normal fear. But in reality, it's safer than getting in a car, safer than getting on a bus, safer than crossing the street. I'll say, the minute I look nervous, go ahead, get nervous. But you're going to notice me chatting and probably eating a muffin. So no worries. And just a short chat, patient, loving, kind, seems to calm people down. And offering to answer questions they have. If you need anything during this flight, hit that call button. My name is Steven. I'll be right here for you. And I don't do this all the time. I don't throw food and drink at every problem. But I'll tell you, it's almost impossible to be really anxious and eat Chex Mix at the same time. Try it. So if someone's like, I'm like, "Would you like a little cup of water or some ice?" Sometimes just crunching on some ice makes me feel better. Or sometimes just something like a little thing of Pringles, a little snack sometimes makes me feel better. There you go. I'm going to throw a can of Pringles at a problem, and if it works, awesome. I don't do that with every problem. I don't offer food and drink all the time, but I am empowered when someone is just super afraid. If a thing of Pringles is going to make them feel better, here. There you go. So again, a really hard question to answer because every case is going to be a little bit different. But again, approaching it with patience, love, and tolerance, kindness, a slower cadence, a pleasant energy. I never have a problem. And so far, it's always worked. All right, so Matthew asks, what's the difference between base seniority and company seniority? I guess it would be easier to start about with company seniority. Company seniority would really only come into play for me is if I were going to transfer to another base. Someone who's more senior to me would be able to transfer before I would. The most common way that company seniority comes into play is if I'm trying to non-rev somewhere. If I'm flying standby in a passenger seat, a standby seat, company seniority trumps everything. So if someone is way more senior than I am, they would get the opportunity to take that seat before I would. So if there's 10 open seats, there's 15 of us on standby. The most senior people in a row would get those opportunities to fly first, no matter what their base was. Those are the only two reasons I can think really off the top of my head that company seniority would really come into play. Just for kicks, I looked at my bid sheet and I am number 2,274 out of about 3,700 flight attendants. So for my level of seniority, that's not too bad for a company seniority. In base, I am number 422 out of 653. Again, not the worst. I always get a line. I will always get a line unless I forget to bid, which, knock on wood, I will never forget to bid. But I'm pretty much guaranteed to get a line. And I would get a line looking at the way our company is structured and where I am in seniority. I think I would get a line no matter what base I was in, except for Atlantic City, which is never going to happen. All right, so places that a base seniority would come into play would be when I was bidding for a reserve notification period, if I were on reserve. If I were on reserve, also, I don't know the specifics exactly and how it's decided, but I believe your base seniority and the number of hours you were scheduled to fly come into play as to who is called first for reserves. I believe your base seniority plays into that somehow. I don't know the specifics of it. I don't remember. It's been a year since I've been on reserve. Bidding for vacation is also based on your base seniority. Most senior person gets their first choice for vacation. Choosing a position on a trip. For example, excuse me, on this trip I'm on, fantastic crew, I am the most junior person. The most senior person chose to fly lead. The next senior person chose to fly C, which is the position in the back galley, in the aft galley. And I am left with position B in the mid cabin, which is where I really like to be if I'm not flying lead. But there are times that the most junior person might fly lead because the people who are more senior might want to both fly in the back as B and C, where that's where their jump seats are located. So they might be friends. They might want to sit next to each other in the back, kind of hang out, where the most junior person would be up in the front. So it really depends on what positions you like to fly and what your position in base is. And ready exempt. If you're on reserve with my company, again, my company, it's all different with everybody else's airlines. In my company, if you are in the top 20% of our reserves, you can choose to be ready exempt, which means that you don't have to sit airport standby. You may have to if we have no reserves at all, but for the most part, if you are in the top 20% of our reserves, and we have enough reserves, you don't have to do airport standby. So it's that can be a benefit for some people. I didn't mind airport standby, but some people hate it. So base seniority is probably more important for your day-to-day life. Company seniority is really probably most important when you're non-revving, I think, or if you're transferring. All right, Joni asks, can you have a dog on your lap during a flight? Well, that sort of depends. If it's an emotional support animal and it's small enough to fit on your lap, if it's smaller than a lap child is a child under the age of 2, which is one that we're allowed to have a passenger have on their lap. If an animal, or your dog, for example, is smaller than a lap child, and it's an emotional support animal, that's very important. And emotional support animals are not just pets. They're an animal doing a job. They're allowed to be on your lap. Unless, again, this is my company specific, unless you are seated in a seat that has an inflatable seatbelt. If you're on one of our airplanes, some of the seatbelts seem kind of thick. They're like a baguette almost. It's like a big handful. And in particular seats, the seatbelts inflate like an airbag, so that you don't hit the seat in front of you or the bulkhead in front of you. Not every seat has one, but if you're sitting in one of those seats that has an inflatable seatbelt, you can't have an animal on your lap or a baby, a lap child. If it is a pet, not a service animal, if it's a pet, you cannot have it in your lap. It cannot be sitting on a seat of its own. It's got to be in a carrier that fits under the seat in front of you. An emotional support animal can also sit on the floor at your feet as well. So if it's like an emotional support animal, it's like a German Shepherd, happens. It can sit at your feet. It doesn't have to sit in your lap at all. Every airline's going to have its little specifics about animals and pets. Pets in cabin, again, different than an emotional support animal. We're allowed up to 4 carriers in my airline with a maximum of 2 pets in each carrier. So it could be technically up to 8 pets in cabin in 4 carriers. Very specific. That could change at any point. My airline might change their policies. So as of today, so yes, you can have a dog on your lap during a flight if it's an emotional support animal. If it's not, no. Now, someone else, and I forgot who asked, about pets in cabin or the cargo hold. Now, I just touched on pets in cabin. We're allowed up to 8 pets in the cabin, but we have a maximum of 4 carriers. So you'd have to have some pretty small pets to put in 2 in a carrier, right? That fits under the seat. In the cargo hold, my airline, as far as I know, does not allow pets in the cargo hold. There was just an incident this week where an aircraft, I guess, slid off a runway into a river or something, and no one was hurt. Everyone got off the plane fine, but apparently there were animals in the cargo hold, pets, and they died. They drowned. I don't know how you can put a pet in a cargo hold. This is my personal opinion. It's a living, breathing animal, especially now that I have pets of my own. I couldn't imagine the stress of what it would be like to be put in a cargo hold. There's got to be another option for you, but that's my personal opinion. We don't, as far as I know, allow pets in a cargo hold. I just think that just sounds like a horror show. And I think I already talked about pets in cabin. Sarah didn't actually ask a clear question, but she brought out some points with some questions kind of built into that. That didn't make any sense at all. I apologize. So hi, Sarah. She brought up some really interesting topics. So there was a paragraph that kind of came around to the idea of, do flight attendants want to stay home and avoid people? Never mind when they non-rev or on days off. Do flight attendants just get saturated and overloaded with people? Do we want to avoid people altogether and, kind of just, hide away? Yeah, I guess. So personally, like this past week, I was off for 7 days. I could have gone anywhere. I could have done anything in this country. I chose to stay home and kind of isolate with my cats. I didn't do that because I was avoiding people, but because I do spend a large part of my working day with people, like really, really close, to have some alone time and to be sort of decompress is really nice. Like I went to the mall today and it was so packed. I was having a hard time walking because for some reason people don't know how to walk in public. I don't know. So yeah, I guess sometimes you do want to avoid people because, so much of our job involves being really, really, so close with everybody, and we sit next to people for so much of our workday. So yeah, sometimes you want to avoid people, but would that stop me from non-revving? No. Um, if I were a commuter, maybe. Because, if I have a 4-day trip and if I live in Portland, I have to fly to Las Vegas to just start my work day and then fly for 4 days and then commute home from Vegas to Portland. If I'm off for 4 days, do I want to go fly to Atlanta? No. I'm going to stay home. So maybe if I were a commuter, I would stop me from non-revving. But I guess it would all depend on your experience. Someone who is in their first couple of years of being a flight attendant, they're probably much more excited about traveling around and using their benefits. If someone's been around for a number of years, they've seen it and done it all, and they just rather stay home. So I think their experience might be different depending on how much experience a flight attendant has in the job, what their experience is in terms of, are they a commuter or do they live in base? So it would all depend. And she also asked, how do you find a healthy balance? It depends on the week. Because I was home for 7 days with my cats, I am feeling so relaxed and so peaceful and so easy that this isn't very stressful at all. If I had gone back to Atlanta and then up to Boston and then had to work a 4-day after a 4-day, I don't know, I'd be really kind of off beam. So to find a healthy balance, I think I would have to really focus on eating healthy. I'd have to focus on getting enough sleep. But I'm not a high time flyer. I don't fly a crazy number of hours. I think I'm blocked this month at 75 hours, which isn't crazy at all. So I have lots of time off. So that's where my balance comes into play. But if I were working 110 hours versus 75 hours, I think I would really have to be more conscious about sleeping properly, eating properly, exercising, and staying in touch with friends and family to kind of keep me grounded and centered. And this is something that, there could be a whole separate video on, is basically working with new people on every trip. You build this camaraderie for 3 or 4 days. You're really working very closely with people for 3 or 4 days. You have this great camaraderie, and then poof, you get back from the trip. Everyone's like, bye, see you later. Wait, we were just friends. What happened? And what do you do when you had that camaraderie? Then it all goes away after that trip. And then you have a whole new group of people you're working with your next trip. So how do you bond with people? How do you make friends with people, especially if they're coming and going so frequently? this month, excuse me, I'm having the worst heartburn. Mm. This month, for example, I was I'm on a line with two other people. So typically you would assume, oh, great, I'll be working with these people for the next month. Both of my coworkers on this line swapped and dropped and flipped and flopped and all those things. So I don't work with anybody the same trip in a row. I'm working with different people all month. So it would really be almost impossible to make great close friends in the course of 1 month, since I'm going to be working with new people all the time. So it's kind of hard, but you're going to click with particular people. And for example, some of my favorite people I hardly see. But I stay in touch with them on Facebook, or I run into them in the crew room. And once in a while, you'll really start to make connections. And it might take a little bit longer. It might take you 6 months, a year, or longer. But you're going to find those people who have similar interests. And you might say, hey, I've got an annual pass to the museum in New York. We have a layover next week. Do you want to go to the museum together? Awesome, that sounds great. I'd love to go. And then she might say, hey, you know what? I'm going to Red Rock. Do you want to go hiking? And you sort of kind of fall into these things. You have to be much more active and participate more in building these relationships and these bonds. You can't really do it very passively. I tend to be more passive when it comes to these things. So I haven't really made a lot of really close connections in Las Vegas. I have a select small group of people I would consider friends here in Las Vegas. But it can be hard. And that's one of the reasons I think a lot of flight attendants say that this job can be lonely, is because you do make these fleeting relationships, these quick 3-day trips. They're like, oh my God, I love my crew. And then you get back to base and everyone just kind of scatters and you're like, wait, you're all by yourself again. So it can be hard to make those connections and those friends, but it takes some active participation in when you do have a common ground, you have to build on it quick. Again, something I fail at. I'm much better at making videos than I am making friends. So there we go. I hope that answered those questions a little bit to some degree, Sarah. If I didn't, please feel free and leave a comment or drop me a message, and I'll try to be more clear on something. Okay. All right. Well, I have talked for 23 minutes now. It's time for me to go. I want to go take a nice long hot shower and then maybe crawl into bed and see if I can get to sleep early. So the next time I see you will probably be about my kids, Buddy, Claire, and Eleanor. Buddy, Eleanor, and Claire. And that's it. I'll see you guys later. If you have any questions, I should say, if you have any other questions I haven't answered before, or if you want me to speak more on any topic I kind of was a little vague on, certainly leave a comment below, and I'll do my best. Okay? I'll talk to you later. Fly safe. Bye.